You're either going to sign a consent form saying that you're allowing us to search them.
Whatever you guys are doing in this airport,
or I'm going to detain them.
Is totally wrong.
Run my dog on it and get a search warrant.
I'm a random search, guys.
I didn't feel like I could have said no.
So those white folks, and I'm the random search.
No, there's no way this is random.
Innocent passengers searched at the gate by plainclothes drug agents looking to seize cash.
You're taking people's money based off an assumption.
I work hard for my money.
How many innocent people do you have to search before you find what you're looking for?
Sir, I've got nothing to say to you.
The DEA still hasn't answered our questions, but our 2-year investigation,
Why do people have to prove themselves innocent?
would lead to a single incident that would end the entire program nationwide.
Oh, that's my, hey.
That's yours. Where's your bag at?
I don't consent to search, sir.
You don't have to consent. Where's your backpack at? Where is it? Under your seat?
It got put away, but I don't consent to being searched.
I don't care what your consent stuff.
Had you not seen our investigation, what would you have done?
I would have just assumed that it was part of a standard screening procedure and consented to the search.
David recorded the incident on the very same phone where he had watched our investigation in plain sight. He stopped recording only to double check the article so he could stand up for his rights.
I didn't consent to be searched. Like, I dragged off the plane here. Is that accurate?
Actually, you walked off the plane. I didn't drag you off. I took your bag off the plane. So
You took the bag off my plane. Okay.
Tell your story.
Back detained, not you.
Yeah, you're trying this legal stuff. It's not going to work, dude.
This particular passenger said no, did not give consent,
Correct.
and the task force officer removed his bag from the plane anyway.
And to do that, the agent needed reasonable suspicion.
The Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Justice reopened his investigation of the DEA's airport cold consent encounters after seeing the video David recorded.
We wouldn't do this and be doing it across the country if it was illegal.
Without the subject thinking to immediately use their cell phone to record the event, we certainly wouldn't have known about it. In fact, we clearly wouldn't have known about it because absent that video, there was no record of the incident.
The DEA had no record because agents didn't find drugs or cash in David's bag.
The DEA wasn't keeping records of its encounters unless it found cash or drugs.
And they promised you they would.
And they promised us after our first report a decade ago they would.
Once they learned of your latest investigation, they were going back.
When we began our investigation and asked for the paperwork, that's when, months later, they started creating paperwork trying to lay out why they did what they did.
David's name was put on a DEA list because he bought a last-minute ticket.
When you buy a last-minute ticket, we get alerts.
In some cases, the only reason for the so-called cold consent encounter was a purchase of a last-minute ticket. I purchased a last-minute ticket to come interview you.
Approaching individuals based solely on that basis without any lead, any other information to suggest they might be a drug courier or money launderer was concerning.
The Inspector General discovered David's last-minute ticket was reported to the DEA by an airline employee who was a regular paid informant.
A single commercial airline employee received tens of thousands of dollars, effectively a cut of the money seized.
It turned out that the individual was getting a percentage of the amount seized on multiple occasions over a longer period of time.
Informants are being paid with confiscated property from searches that the informants triggered with no real evidence. It's obvious why that's a potential abuse and a potential violation of civil rights.
U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia launched his own inquiry with the Department of Justice, citing the findings of our investigation.
What was the most troubling thing you saw in our reporting?
There is an economic incentive to stop, search, and confiscate, even where there was little or no, in many cases, no evidence implicating the person searched, and where here in Georgia it appears that there may have been racial profiling involved.
Senator Ossoff's inquiry and the Inspector General's report landed on the Attorney General's desk within days of each other.
The Inspector General's report was scathing about the failures associated with this program. Many of those failures revealed by your reporting.
We are recommending, which is what we did in the report, immediately suspending these activities, which the department did.
This is the directive from the Deputy Attorney General of the U.S. Department of Justice, ordering the DEA to stop searching innocent passengers at departure gates nationwide.
I'm not sure that this change this investigation and this halt to potentially very problematic DEA practices would have occurred without your reporting. You have been on this story helping to expose what appear to be potentially serious civil rights violations.
Now, at airports across the nation, there's no sign of plainclothes drug agents searching passengers at the boarding door. The agents appear to have departed. It's unclear if they'll ever return.
What does it mean to you that this program is shut down because of your reporting?
We're trying to bring about change. And often we say, well, this happened after our investigation, but this one happened because of our investigation. David said he would not have said no, and he would not have recorded had he not seen our investigation. And that one video changed this entire policy because it laid bare the fiction that these searches are consensual and that the targets are almost always drug traffickers.
Set your bag down and then you can walk on the plane. You can do that, but you can't take your bag.
You're not with the, what do you call it? I've seen these like videos on YouTube before. You're not with the...
I'm the DEA, I'm the government.
And the first distinct thing I remember was pulling my phone and saying, I am the government.
He actually said, I am the government?
Yeah, he says, I am the government, and he was very assertive about it.
I'm the government.
This is Officer Nick Nimskern with the Montgomery, Ohio Police Department working the Cincinnati airport as part of a plainclothes DEA task force, stopping David, a New York-bound passenger, after he and his bag had already cleared TSA screening.
Jeez Louise, why are you so angry?
I'm not angry, I just want my rights to be respected, that's all.
Well, I just told you can walk on, but you can set your bag down. And we'll just have a dog.
Or else you're gonna... Am I being detained right now?
Not you, but your bag.
Am I free to go?
Not your bag. I've told you like
I'm gonna walk
times.
then.
You can't do that.
Am I being detained?
Robert,
But am I free to go?
Was your heart pounding? Were you nervous? Were you confident in your position?
Oh, I was unbelievably nervous. In fact, the first thing I did was on the plane was go back to my phone and just see, is this really happening? And did I remember this correctly?
You mentioned seeing a YouTube video. That was our investigation you saw, right?
Yeah, that was your investigation.
Atlanta News First Investigates tracked plainclothes drug agents through the Atlanta airport, watching and recording them searching passengers at boarding gates looking for cash to seize. In court filings, the government called these cold consent encounters.
How many innocent people do you have to search before you find what you're looking for?
Sir, I've got nothing to say to you.
Yeah, I distinctly remembered a couple of pieces that stood out. I think one of them was asking the question, am I free to go? The second thing that I really remember is that I was free to walk away if so.
We do have a completely full flight this afternoon.
Once on board, David checked our story again on his phone.
I actually saw the investigative TV news article pop up too. And I remember thinking, well, at least I did this right. You have the right to walk away if they're not detaining you.
Agent Nimskern followed him on the plane and mistakenly grabbed another passenger's bag.
Oh, that's my... Hey.
That's yours. Where's your bag at?
I don't consent to search, sir.
You don't have to consent. Where's your backpack at? Where is it? Under your seat?
It got put away, but I don't consent to being searched.
I don't care what your consent stuff. You want to watch the dog?
Yes,
you want
please.
To sit in your seat?
I would like to watch the
Then
dog.
come out.
It was definitely embarrassing, humiliating. I'm sure everybody's wondering, is this guy a terrorist? Is he bringing bombs on board?
I'm not trying to be a jerk, I just don't like being searched.
You're not trying to be a jerk.
No, I don't
might
know
be
who
the
you are.
biggest jerk I've ever met out here, honestly.
That's fair, dude.
The airport is not a Constitution-free zone. You retain your Fourth Amendment rights when you're in the airport.
Kirby Thomas West is an attorney with the D.C.-based Institute for Justice, now representing David.
Any of us, and even a constitutional lawyer knowing all my rights, there's no guarantees that you're going to be safe from this kind of search or seizure.
One thing he said is, I don't need your consent. Is that true?
The only way that law enforcement can conduct a search without your consent is if there is probable cause of a crime.
Am I under suspicion of a crime right now? You have probable cause?
So we have a lot of money and drugs going out of every airport to New York.
Okay.
It's an influx of it.
Am I being suspected of a crime? I just want this to be reported.
I don't know.
Do you have reasonable suspicion? Do you have probable cause? And he says, I don't know.
Do you have probable cause for a search?
I have probable cause for a dog to walk up and smell your bag, yes.
The canine at first walks right by David's bag without stopping. Then...
I saw him gesture back to my bag, and I remember him just doing something with his fingers. Upon looking at the video again, you can hear him making that kissy sound.
You see that? You got it recorded. Don't edit that part out of the video either. So he sat on your bag.
Okay.
Is there money, drugs, or weapons in your bag? You did all this for what?
Just,
this is what we do. Let me tell you, we've been doing this for a long time. Years and years and years.
I
Longer than
understand
probably you've
that.
been alive.
I respect you, sir.
We're within our rights, or I wouldn't do what I did.
Is my flight going to be...
Hey, that's your plane.
All right. I just did some research on this when I was on the plane, but...
Well, Google's great. I'm telling you, if I were you, I'd call your lawyer and see what he wants you to do. I know you're annoyed, and I'm annoyed too that you caused such a scene for something so silly.
I don't think standing up for your rights is silly.
You actually disobeyed me, disrespected me.
And also, it's weird that he puts this whole scene on me.
We wouldn't do this and be doing it across the country if it was illegal.
We wouldn't be doing this all over the country if it wasn't legal.
Well, first, this isn't legal, and second, that they do this all over the country, but it was extremely validating to hear it from the horse's mouth.
You walked off the plane. Fact check, bro.
Basically, do you want a receipt for the bag?
You want a receipt for the bag?
All right, you guys have consent to search it.
Before he searches my bag, the officer says, I'm sure that there's nothing in your bag anyways.
I'm sure there's nothing in here at this point.
At the end of the day, there was nothing illegal in your bag at all.
No, he searched my bag very thoroughly, and nothing was found.
This is just going to prove that your dog has been trained by you guys to signal whenever you need to signal.
Maybe smelled something residual from something else. I don't know. I'm not a dog. Are you a dog?
Was there ever an apology? Did they say we're sorry? How did they end the encounter?
They laughed at me.
They laughed at you?
Yeah, they laughed at me. I asked him, so what do I do with my flight? And he said, that's your own problem now.
All David did was buy a last-minute ticket. It was for work. It was for business travel. And the reason he doesn't want to be identified is because his company does business with the government. He's a high-level consulting executive, but he's also a minority and who bought a last-minute ticket. This program has existed in some form or another since 1975. Hiding in plain sight at the busiest airport in the world. Drug agents walk the concourses, blending in by dressing just like passengers. This is a DEA task force officer scanning passengers boarding a flight for Los Angeles. There's another. How do we know who they are? Because we use the same tactics to investigate them after several passengers said they were targeted for warrantless searches at the gate or on the jet bridge.
I'm a random search, guys. So he says. So those white folks, and I'm the random search.
Hollywood actor John Ellie was stopped by Clayton County officers while boarding a flight to L.A.
Were you here in Atlanta?
Yep.
How long were you here?
Doesn't matter. Why are you asking me all these silly questions? Check my bag, do what you gotta do, so I can get out of here, please.
The narcotics officers didn't find anything, but kept asking questions of the Emmy-winning actor.
When you purchased your ticket?
Don't worry about it, man. Just what's it called? Check my bag so I can get out of here, please.
All right, this bag's good.
Thank you.
That whole thing is just so humiliating. Like, who thinks this is a proper way to treat anyone?
Tabari Sturdivant is an Atlanta-based film director who was also flying to L.A. when agents stopped him at the departure gate.
All my life, I pride myself on being an upstanding citizen, and you still do this to me. I'm clean, like I'll comply, but like, why me?
Drug agents searched Tabari's bags in the boarding area in front of other passengers, some recording on their phones.
I'm thinking more about, making this plane than I'm even thinking about my rights at this point.
Is that part of their strategy, you think?
I think it's 100%.
Records show that DEA and local police rarely find any drugs or make arrests during what they call cold consent searches at the gate.
I see the finish line to get on the plane. Everybody knows that feeling of getting, right at the door or getting on the jetway when you get blindsided. I'm like, man, I got to get on this flight. And they were like, if you let us do our job, I'll make sure you get on your flight. So I'm like, do what you got to do.
They didn't find anything suspicious in Tabari's bag. So what were they looking for?
He just is like, are you high? Have you smoked? Do you have any drugs in this bag? Do you have any money?
The DEA and other drug agents are seizing millions of dollars from departing passengers at Hartsfield-Jackson, mostly from flights to LA.
even though it's completely legal to travel domestically with any amount of cash. We found dozens of cases in Atlanta's federal court. USA v. some amount of currency. That's right, in most cases, they don't arrest the passenger. They arrest their money, even when no drugs are found. The probable cause statements show that the cash is administratively forfeited as drug money if the passenger can't prove on the spot that their money is innocent.
You're either going to sign a consent form saying that you're allowing us to search them,
Okay.
or I'm going to detain them, run my dog on it, and get a search warrant.
Feel free to search the bag, sir.
Are you willing to sign a consent form?
Yes, I will sign a consent form. Feel free to search my bags.
In this 2015 Department of Justice report, the Office of Inspector General told the DEA it should stop using a troubling technique, causing passengers to believe a voluntary search is a mandatory TSA secondary inspection. 8 years later, we found DEA agents at Atlanta's airport using similar methods.
We're no different than TSA, man. People just like give us a little more hard time than they give TSA.
He just approached me and he asked me for my ID. He didn't state who he was. He just asked me for ID. And I thought he was a Delta agent. He had airport credentials on. And so I gave it to him immediately. I thought this was how I was going to get on the plane or something. I don't know.
The drug agents may be in plain clothes, but they're not undercover. This is Sergeant David Fikes. He and his canine Bane are still all over the Brookhaven Police Facebook page. Since Fikes was assigned to the DEA task force at the airport last year, records show he's been involved in seizing more than $1 million in cash. His police department has received a 9% cut of that money, more than $100,000, even though Brookhaven PD is nowhere near the airport.
If we have the ability to walk up to, say, Officer Fikes or to any one of these agents in the airport, what would you like us to ask them?
How would you feel if somebody did this to you? How would you feel?
We found Fikes and other plainclothes DEA task force officers by going to departure gates for LA flights. They stopped passengers at the boarding door, asking to see their documents before going through their carry-on bags. The searches we watched came up empty. The drug agents cased 3 different gates in Concourse A, blending in with passengers while we observed from a standoff distance. But it didn't take long before the task force officers spotted our phone and camera. Once they sat down, it was time for a cold consent interview of our own.
Hey there, I'm with the news. You're Sergeant Fikes, aren't you? I'm with Atlanta News First.
Okay.
How many innocent people do you have to search before you find what you're looking for?
Sir, I've got nothing to say to you.
Another officer was behind me, out of sight, over my shoulder, giving hand signals to Fikes as I asked him questions.
What about Tabari Sturdivant? Do you remember him? No?
Took everything out your bag and put it all around in front of everybody and made you look like a criminal. Like, how would you feel, Officer Fikes?
Why do people have to prove themselves innocent? You got nothing to say to these people?
How did you, of all people, find these DEA agents who were trained to actually blend in with other passengers?
The first thing was we had to know who they were, and we had to know what their MO was. Like, how do they do this? The court cases are very hard to find because they're not against the passengers, they're against their money. What I did is I went into the federal court database and I searched U**, that's a wild card, space V dot space asterisk currency. And that suddenly brought up all of these cases. In these court files, they laid out for the judge how they did it. So they said, in Atlanta, we went to flights leaving for Los Angeles because they call that a drug source city. I walked more than 7 miles a day in the airport, from Los Angeles Gate to Los Angeles Gate to Los Angeles Gate. I bought tickets to nowhere, basically. I bought $35 tickets to Orlando on Spirit and Frontier and never boarded the flight just to get through security. I wasn't going anywhere, but I had luggage. Inside that bag were cameras and multiple changes of clothes and hats and COVID masks. Every time they would spot me recording, I would slip into the men's room and change clothes again. And then I would go back to recording them. At some point, they figured out I was the same guy in different clothes. I pulled out the 360 camera and I walked up to them and did the interview like this. How many innocent people do you have to search before you find what you're looking for?
Sir, I've got nothing to say to you.
Because that's when you saw the other agent behind me saying, don't answer any questions. I didn't know that till I checked the video after the fact. I had the element of surprise, which is what they usually have. So when I walked up to them and identified myself and started asking questions, At first, they didn't know how to react, and then they just decided to go into a secure area. They might come to their senses and say, wait, we're the authorities. Maybe we can detain him, or maybe we can seize his camera. And if they did that, I was worried they were going to delete the footage. So the very first thing I did was change clothes again. I sat at a gate, opened up the laptop, and I uploaded the footage to the cloud immediately so that if I was detained or they seized my camera, the footage would be safe.
So how did you get the footage from the airport cameras?
Right after the encounter, after I uploaded the footage, I went to every single surveillance camera in the airport. I used my phone to take pictures of every single surveillance camera and then also the gate number in context. And from the airport, before I left, from my laptop, I filed a records request because the airport is a city department. I asked for all of the surveillance cameras that covered that concourse, and they only gave me 2 out of more than a dozen cameras. The airport claimed all of the other cameras weren't functioning. The only 2 cameras they gave me were one that showed nothing, it was pointed in the other direction, and the one that was a low resolution shot of me tracking the agents through the airport.
Why would people travel with so much cash?
We interviewed Kermit Warren from New Orleans, who had saved up his money as a shoe shine guy and was going to buy a truck during COVID to start a new business. It's very hard to buy a vehicle out of state with a cashier's check because you might get there and find out the condition is better or worse, and you haggle over the price. He brought cash, and they seized it.
Kermit Warren is back on the road to recovery. His fight with the government finally in the rearview mirror.
What does this truck mean to your livelihood? Everything. Without this, I can't make my money. I can't feed my family.
It wasn't a hurricane here in New Orleans' lower Ninth Ward that took his life savings. DEA agents seized his $28,000 at the airport in Columbus, Ohio.
They said we were notified that you had a lot of cash on you. I said, what is it against the law for me to travel with cash? I'm up here to purchase a truck.
The pandemic took Kermit's job as the shoe shine man at a New Orleans hotel, so he and his son decided to start a towing business. They found this used truck for sale in Ohio and flew there with the cash to buy it, but they decided it wasn't the right truck for them.
I decided, I said, I'm not going to get this vehicle. We're going to go to the airport. We're going to fly back to New Orleans.
With the money.
With the money.
They left with the same money in this bag photographed when they arrived in Ohio. On the way home, Kermit told TSA at the Columbus airport he had a large amount of cash, and court records show the TSA informed the DEA agents, who seized the money without finding drugs.
I wasn't arrested. I wasn't charged with any kind of crimes or anything. All they wanted to do was take my cash and send me back home.
They didn't have to prove you were a drug dealer. You had to prove you weren't a drug dealer.
That's correct, sir. I said, if you don't believe me, we have the number to the gentleman who we're going to buy the vehicle from. We have a description of the vehicle. We have pictures of the vehicle. Didn't want to hear any of that. It was just see cash, take cash.
Kermit's father drowned here when the levees broke during Hurricane Katrina. His mother died soon after. They didn't have much, but what they had, they left to their son. And Kermit says that inheritance was among the money the DEA seized.
Most of it was my life savings. I would take $100 per week and put on the side for like 25 years.
How did Kermit eventually pay for a tow truck? He filed a claim for his own money in federal court.
Drug dealers don't try to get their money back from the police. They say, well, this is the cost of doing business, right?
That's correct. I would have chalked it up and said, that's just a part of that lifestyle. But I work hard for my money. Everything I have is from blood, sweat, and tears.
Now he's back in the driver's seat here in New Orleans, the sun setting on the case after the nonprofit Institute for Justice represented him for free, and federal prosecutors agreed to drop the case and return his money.
What was it like when the government gave you every single penny back? How did that feel?
I knew I would get it back because I know one thing, I was innocent.
Do you feel vindicated?
Of course. Why wouldn't I? I'm fighting with everything living inside of me that this does not happen to anybody else.
Did you find evidence the agents were stopping minorities more than the white passengers?
Local police in Metro Atlanta were replicating this federal program, and we know from their statistics that they were gathering that they were stopping minority passengers and black passengers more often than any other racial group.
At the busiest airport in the world, some passengers have an unexpected layover on the jet bridge.
I'm a random search, guys. So he says. So those white folks, and I'm the random search.
These Clayton County narcotics officers searched actor Jean Ellie. The same thing happened to comedian Clayton English.
When they stopped me on that jet bridge, most of the other people that went past me seemed to be, white people.
English has joined forces with fellow comedian Eric Andre.
I had 2 agents whip out a badge,
filing a federal lawsuit against Clayton County police accusing airport narcotics officers of racial profiling.
The most hardcore drugs I have in my backpack are Propecia.
Drugs are rarely found in these jet bridge searches, according to Clayton County narcotics logs obtained by Atlanta News First Investigates. Records that also show local police have seized more than $1 million in cash from passengers.
We know that more than 90% of the people they search, they don't seize anything and they don't arrest anyone.
Right. It didn't make sense to me at all. It felt like profiling because who's taking drugs to LA? Weed is legal out there, everything. Like, you're gonna get what, I don't see who's taking it out there. Maybe you should be catching somebody coming in. That might have made sense. Like, how many big dealers have you caught like this? Is this how you caught El Chapo? And then once I was actually given the statistics, I'm like, oh, okay. That's never what it was about.
The comedians cite national statistics showing 8% of air travelers are black. Their lawsuit accuses Clayton County officers of stopping black passengers at a rate 7 times that national average.
The odds of it being random and it coming out to where all the people that you're pulling over are black people, are people of color, are some ethnic group, it's like, no, there's no way this is random.
There was a handful of black people. My flight was full. So let's say it was 200 people on the flight and maybe 5 to 10 black people on the flight period.
You didn't see any white people stopped getting on your flight?
No, absolutely not.
Film director Tabari Sturdivant was also boarding a flight to LA when he was searched by federal drug task force officers.
I travel around the world and I've seen different things. I've seen random, you put your ticket on it, boop, this is a random check all over the world. Why am I in my hometown, Atlanta, Georgia, that, you can totally humiliate me and disregard my rights?
Records show the federal agents describe the searches as random, consensual encounters. But the same records detail how they selected specific passengers. Observed a man who appeared nervous.
Why you? Why did they pick you?
I had a black hoodie on. I had an expensive duffel bag around my back. I had some expensive shoes on.
That's not a crime.
It's not a crime.
But designer bags show up repeatedly in the federal forfeiture filings and DEA evidence photographs. Brown Gucci bag, black Louis Vuitton backpack.
They're saying Atlanta to Los Angeles is a drug trafficking route.
Right.
But it's also a route for entertainment. Black man with a designer bag flying to LA might be in the film industry, not the drug industry.
Right. The only reason I can think is because they look like they're not supposed to have something that nice. Or you think that this person shouldn't be able to afford this item based off their skin color.
This is the form DEA agents were required to fill out 20 years ago, showing the race and ethnicity of passengers they searched. But the Department of Justice Inspector General discovered the DEA has not collected any such data regarding cold consent encounters since 2003, in part because there were too many in a day. The IG report said the Department of Justice noted cold consent encounters are more often associated with racial profiling.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm not even allowed to get on a plane to go do work without being, profiled.
The Clayton County search logs are heavily redacted, but Atlanta News First Investigates was able to see behind the redactions, showing the local officers received training from the DEA task force in a 3-day federal program called Operation Jetway. We got those records from attorneys for the 2 comedians, but when we asked for the same exact records directly from Clayton County, the section about officers getting federal training wasn't redacted, it was completely missing.
You're taking people's money based off an assumption, not facts, not evidence, and it's really not much recourse for the people. So yeah, something definitely needs to be done.
So what did you do?
We went to Washington and we found out there was already a bill filed, the FAIR Act, to change this, to make it harder to search innocent passengers. And it would also take that money and instead of giving it to the agency that seized it, it would put it into the general fund.
From battleground to common ground, unlikely allies are joining forces in the nation's capital.
In this country, we believe that everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
A deprivation of civil liberty that can happen to any of us.
They just took it and they said, sue us. But you ever tried suing the government? It's not that easy to sue the government.
Members of Congress are responding to our investigative series exposing drug agents hiding in plain sight at airport gates, seizing cash from passengers without arresting them.
This isn't criminal asset forfeiture where you arrest someone and then take their assets as part of the criminal prosecution. They're not charging them, they're arresting the money, not the person.
In fact, I think technically the charge is against the money. It's bizarre. It's some old maritime law or something from way back when, but they charge the money, not the person. But I think the important thing is it's turning justice on its head. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Not, oh, you're guilty, give me your stuff, and then you can have it back if you prove you didn't get it through ill-gotten gains. And that's not the way our country's supposed to work.
Here, in a divided United States Capitol, this issue is bringing both Republicans and Democrats together. It's about both civil rights and civil liberties.
Oftentimes they are the same.
The vast majority of people they're stopping are people of color, and the largest single group is black men.
It's a matter of racial profiling.
Georgia Congressman Hank Johnson is one of 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans co-sponsoring the Fifth Amendment Integrity Restoration Act.
The power of the government to simply seize property just based on a belief, a mere belief, an unfounded belief even, that property is associated or connected with criminal activity.
But not off the backs of innocent citizens. And you'll catch some crooks in this process as well. But sadly, we're catching too many innocents who have to fight their way out of this bind, and many of them can't do it.
Michigan Republican Tim Walberg has filed his bill over and over for nearly a decade.
Criminals, actual criminals, have more rights than innocent people who have their money taken.
Under civil asset, criminals have more. That's why civil asset is such a valuable tool. It can be used well, but it can be abused. And because you don't have to meet the standards that you would for a criminal asset forfeiture.
The FAIR Act would force the government to prove to a federal judge that seized money was from crime with clear and convincing evidence, and all cash from civil forfeitures would go to the Treasury's general fund. Federal agencies and local police would no longer get to keep the money they seize.
It's a perverse incentive.
That unified message is echoing across the aisle, pushing the FAIR Act through a House committee for the first time by unanimous vote.
That unanimous vote didn't happen in just any committee. The bill passed out of Judiciary, the setting for some of the most partisan battles in recent years. Yet Republicans and Democrats appear to agree on at least one thing: to make it harder for the government to seize money from innocent people.
I think it was rotten to the core. It's now passed through a committee in the House, and we're hoping to pass it in the Senate as well.
What happened to that bill?
The bill passed out of committee unanimously, but then it sat there on the House floor waiting for an up or down vote that never came. And during that time, many more passengers were stopped and questioned, many were searched, many were surprised at the gate, and more people had money seized and had to prove that their money was theirs and was innocent.
TSA has one mandate: securing air travel. But screeners are looking for more than just weapons or explosives. They're also looking for money. TSA Rule 100.4 tells screeners to alert police when they spot large amounts of currency concealed within someone's bag, even though traveling with large amounts of currency is not illegal.
Of cash that appeared to be hidden There's not anything wrong with about $210,000.
That's not true when flying domestically. Yet drug agents in Charlotte offered this LA-bound passenger a deal. Sign a form abandoning his $100,000 or face a lengthy federal investigation.
There's an option to avoid all that, not to sound like a used car salesman, but I'm going to give you all your options. You can walk away from that money. I'm going to seize the money, but if you want to walk away from a federal investigation that's linked to the money, those are your options. But if you sign this, nobody from the U.S. Attorney's Office will contact you.
3 years later, he's still trying to get his money back from the federal government.
Oh, man.
Court records show Clayton County narcotics officers use similar disclaimer of ownership forms at Atlanta's airport.
Any check bags?
Clayton County officers found neither drugs nor money in 93% of these jet bridge searches, according to our review of more than a year of Drug Task Force logs. But they were still able to seize more than $1 million cash for reasons such as the money was concealed within clothing or it smelled like marijuana. Just flying to California can be suspicious. The passenger was flying from Atlanta, a known drug hub city, to San Francisco, a known drug source city.
Civil forfeiture is actually easier than criminal forfeiture.
Dan Albin and the Institute for Justice have successfully sued the DEA and other agencies to get passengers' money back.
Perversely, it's actually easier to forfeit someone's property from an innocent person who is not charged or convicted of a crime than it is from a criminal defendant who actually is convicted of a crime.
In nearly all airport cash seizures we've reviewed, no drugs were found and the passengers were not arrested or charged with a crime. In the vast majority of these cases, they just take the money. They don't take custody of the person. They, in effect, arrest the money instead of the person.
That's absolutely right. Especially in airport interdictions, it's almost always someone's cash is seized, but they're allowed to continue traveling to board their flight.
On location during this interview or interrogation, you are effectively required to prove that your money isn't from drugs in order for them not to take it right there on the scene.
The way that law enforcement conducts interdiction, the burden is on the person to prove that they're innocent and that their cash is not involved in any criminal activity.
You're either going to sign a consent form saying that you're allowing us to search them,
Okay.
or I'm going to detain them, run my dog on it, and get a search warrant.
Feel free to search the bag, sir.
It's not a consensual interview in those circumstances. It's an ambush.
So we went straight to the top, Drug Enforcement Administration headquarters here in Northern Virginia. We gave the agency days advance notice that we wanted to sit down for an interview. But after we arrived in the nation's capital, the DEA said it didn't have time to answer our questions about the airport searches.
They don't want word about this getting out. They don't want the public to know about what they're doing. They want to be able to continue seizing money from innocent people that they never charge with a crime so that they can keep that money and put it back into their slush funds that they can then spend on any activities they want, including generating even more revenue for DOJ, DEA, and these other agencies.
This is why we do what we do. We want to make the world a better place. We never go into a story with a goal. We just keep following it until we get to that rock bottom why. Why is this happening? And how can they keep doing this without evidence of drug trafficking? How can they seize money from innocent passengers? Well, now we know the answer, and we know they can't do it anymore because of our reporting.
Breaking news live at 5. A major change to your rights at airports across the country after an Atlanta News First investigation.
Drug agents will no longer be allowed to do random searches of passengers at the gate. Atlanta News First Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe is live here at 5 tonight. Brendan, this is a major reversal. This is a big deal.
It really is a big deal. The Department of Justice has ordered the Drug Enforcement Agency to immediately stop searching passengers at airport gates nationwide. All because of a video recorded after our investigation when an innocent passenger said no to DEA agents who pulled his bag off a plane anyway.
Where's your bag at?
I don't consent to search, sir.
You don't have to consent. Where's your backpack at? Where is it? Under your seat?
It got put away, but I don't consent to being searched.
I don't care what your consent stuff.
You mentioned seeing a YouTube video. That was our investigation you saw, right?
I distinctly remembered a couple of pieces that stood out. I think one of them was asking the question, am I free to go?
He was free to go, but not his bag. That passenger missed his flight when the DEA task force officer took his bag off the plane anyway. Nothing illegal was found inside. The passenger said no and recorded the encounter after seeing our investigation in plain sight, which uncovered searches and cash seizures from innocent passengers at Hartsfield-Jackson and other airports nationwide. The Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General investigated this incident and issued a scathing report that was just released today. The Inspector General said an airline employee tipped off DEA agents, and that unidentified informant received a percentage of any cash seized by the DEA, adding up to tens of thousands of dollars for that one airline employee seized from passengers, some of them, many of them innocent. The DOJ got a chance to review the Inspector General report in advance and immediately ordered the DEA to suspend the whole Operation Jetway program nationwide, including here in Atlanta, prohibiting agents from searching passengers unless they're part of an ongoing drug trafficking investigation. I was just in the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the busiest airport in the world. And I looked at face after face after face, and I knew that none of those people was a plainclothes drug agent. And I knew that none of those passengers would be surprised at the boarding door that day. And when I got on my flight, I saw no sign of these drug agents. And that shows the power of investigative reporting.